Alright, hey everyone, Wanderbots here, and welcome back to the Steam Monster Summer Sale Encore sale. So, if there's anything in the Steam sale that you've been waiting for that hasn't gone on a daily deal, a featured deal, anything like that, then now is the time to get it because there are going to be no more sales after tomorrow. So, as such, Steam has put practically every single major daily deal, flash sale, whatever, back on sale. So if there's stuff that you missed from the past week, go take a look. It might be on the front page, it might not. Some of the deals are actually hidden back in, the original store pages. So I'm trying to think of like good examples here, but there's so many to think of and so few that I remember. So if it's a daily deal that you missed along the way, go check the store page. It might actually be on sale, even if it's not displayed on the front page. There are also a couple of games here and there that are not on sale, that are still featured. So for example, South Park Stick of Truth is no longer at its sale price, and do not take it as such. So I guess I wouldn't recommend picking up that one. Anyway, I'm not really going to talk about any of these. I've spent the entire past week talking about all of these games, and at this point you guys probably have heard enough about all of them to at least form some kind of opinion. So instead what I'm going to talk about are the hidden deals of the Steam sale. I've been looking at about 2,000 different indie games. I know there are non-indie games, but indie games are generally the ones that people don't know about, so that's why I kind of want to talk about them. These are games that are fairly cheap, 50% to 95% off. Some are incredibly cheap, some are not so much so, but generally all of them are good and I highly recommend them. So, without further ado, oh yeah, that reminds me, if you've been waiting for Dark Souls, it's not going to go cheaper. Unfortunately, you pretty much just have to pick up Scholar of the First End because Dark Souls 2, nor its DLC, are going on sale, so you're pretty much locked in with the new one. I'm kind of cranky about that. Anyway, so Tower of Guns at $4.50 is quite possibly one of my favorite games from last year. It was kind of the keystone series on my channel for a very, very long time, and is still one of my favorite games to go back to, and at a price tag of $4.50 is an absolute steal. It's not quite as replayable as, say, Binding of Isaac, for example, and like the gameplay is a little bit simple for some people, but I truly recommend it to anybody that likes roguelikes and wants to kind of branch out a little bit, or people that grew up with the Quake games. It plays very similarly to Quake 3, and I love it so much as a result. It's very floaty, there are lots of projectiles, and you can actually kind of like float, dodge, weave, and dance through them. It's actually a really, really deep game, and I truly enjoy playing it. So that is my #1 recommended game. It's not the biggest sale ever, but it's 70% off, $4.50, totally worth picking up. Next is Beatbuddy, and I'm gonna talk about some of these faster than others. Beatbuddy is a puzzle side-scroller platforming game. Well, I guess there's no platforming, so it's like, I guess, a side-scrolly platforming. Side-scrolly puzzle game where you move and attack and solve puzzles to the beat of kind of like the background music. It's actually really clever, and with the price tag of $2, I truly recommend it. Okay, next up, Rogue Legacy. Not exactly the best sale, but I figured I'd mention it, seeing it's probably one of the more popular roguelikes out there. With the price tag of $5.09, I would recommend it. It's not the greatest sale the game's ever been on, but was not a daily deal and was not a flash sale. And if you've been waiting to pick it up, this is probably one of the better deals you're ever going to get it at. At least for the next couple of months. Might go cheaper later. I don't know. Okay, likewise with Risk of Rain. With the price tag of $4, this is one of the better roguelikes out there. It's got a very interesting aesthetic style. I personally really enjoy it. It's got fairly deep gameplay and is fairly replayable. Unfortunately, the last boss is the same last boss every single time around, but ultimately, he's not really the main event that you play the game for. It does have online co-op, and they've generally fixed it. I've played a fair amount of online recently, and it has yet to crash, disconnect, or anything on me up until like the second loop, and even then, like at that point, I was pretty much done with the run anyway. As in, all of my allies were dead, and at that point, I was just carrying the run pretty much ad infinitum, and they were getting a little annoyed at me. So truly, if you like roguelikes, I highly recommend this one. Now, I will also point out, as far as indie gem sales, whatever, a lot of them might be roguelikes. I find they tend to go on sale for cheaper. And also, I generally recommend them more often just because I like roguelikes. So, sorry about that if you don't like roguelikes. Speaking of, Dungeon of the Endless, it's $6.50. Not exactly the greatest price, but I think it's the historical low for the game. unless the historical low is down to $5. I don't know. I have not paid attention on this game since its release. That said, if you've been looking to get into it, now is a decent price tag. It's a strategy RPG roguelike. You're effectively stuck in a dungeon and you have to climb out. It's kind of hard. You get to play with 4 characters. It's much more tactical than action-y, which is kind of a neat thing in a roguelike type game. I guess it plays more like a turn-based strategy game in a way than other things, than many other roguelikes. It's very hard to explain. I'd recommend it, but if it's not on your radar, I'd say wait, it'll go cheaper eventually. Next up is Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition. Both Guacamelees are on sale, but the original version is actually more expensive, and I'm not even sure why it's on Steam anymore. They re-released Guacamelee, the like base version, as like the gold edition, and then they re-released it as the Super Championship Turbo Edition with more levels, couple extra skins, stuff like that, without like giving a discount to anybody that previously owned the game, which honestly makes me a little bit cranky. But well, honestly, it is the best version of Guacamelee. Still doesn't have online co-op, so if you want to play with somebody else, you're pretty much stuck with you know, finding somebody in person to sit next to, play the game with. That said, it's one of the better Metroidvania, Castlevania likes. It's very well done, great style, great gameplay, great platforming. Highly recommended to the price tag of $3.50. Okay, next is Double Dragon Neon. At $2, it's effectively a love letter to the old Double Dragon games. It's a side-scrolly beat-em-up where, you know, you just fight progressive waves of enemies as you progress to beat a boss. I don't know, I haven't played it yet, but with the price tag of $2 and, you know, the general pedigree, it's highly recommended. It's very pretty, it's very functional, it does have online co-op, and, you know, it's just a good game. Okay, next up, probably the quote-unquote worst deal of the bunch is Snakebird. I only include this game because I think most people are never even going to take a look at it, but effectively you're playing as a bird, and your goal is to eat all of the fruit on the level. But every time you eat a fruit, I think you increase in size. It's really clever. It's really frustrating. It's actually a really hard puzzle game. So if you like puzzle games, Snakebird is worth picking up. It's also got kind of a charming style. And I don't know, it just feels kind of like one of those weird cult hit puzzle games that I feel obligated to recommend. Next up is Legend of Dungeon, which bit dated, bit old, bit limited in gameplay, but that said, with the price tag of $3, it's still a very good game for that price tag. They also just released a massive expansion pack for free to everybody that owned the game, and I think anybody that buys the game. So if you're looking to get into kind of like an older roguelike with kind of a different style, Legend Dungeon is actually pretty good. And, well, I guess they're still developing it, which is neat. I did not expect the expansion pack, and it came, and it was very welcome. Okay, next up is Our Darker Purpose, another roguelike, $3. It plays much more similarly to Binding of Isaac, but it's got a macro progression system, much like Rogue Legacy. So as you play the game, you unlock new things, you unlock upgrades, and eventually the game gets easier and easier and easier. There's multiple characters to play. I don't know, I haven't played too much of it, but it's a very highly reviewed roguelike. It just never quite caught on in the same way as like Binding of Isaac ever did. Anyway, next up is Teslagrad. It's sort of a Metroidvania. It plays like a Metroidvania, but there's there's way less of an emphasis on combat and much more of an emphasis on puzzle solving, which I actually really appreciate. The levels are massive, very pretty, music is great, and just overall the entire game is very well designed. It's very fun to play, and I truly recommend picking this one up, especially with the price tag of $3.40. Okay, next up is Dustforce DX. If you're a fan of really, really tight platformers, it's very free-flowy. The entire game is effectively designed around speedrunning. And, I mean, you don't necessarily have to, but if you can get, like, the entire process down for the game, you can zip through a level really fast, and it feels really satisfying. That said, if you don't like really hard platformers, and you don't like kind of the speedrunning type style, Dustforce DX might end up being a little bit hard and a little bit frustrating for you. I think I did a Let's Play series on it a while back, and had to quit maybe 5-6 episodes in. just because I simply was not good enough to get through the game. But again, if you're looking for a good hard platformer, Dustforce is the way to go. Next up is Rocketbirds. For $2, not a really good game, ultimately, but it does have online multiplayer, which is actually pretty entertaining. You play as birds, you have guns, you shoot enemies, and you get to the end of the level. There's some amount of puzzle solving, but it's mostly just finding the switch, getting to the switch, flipping it, and then getting back to the exit of the level. The single player mode has more guns, more gameplay, and more story. But I don't know. For $2, it's a decent amount of gameplay and a decent amount of fun for the price tag. It's not high on the list, but it's not that low either. Okay, next up is The Last Tinker. One of the more expensive games on the list today, but I figured I'd mention it just because the game is very adorable. It's got really kind of boring competitive. It's got very boring, repetitive combat, but like ultimately, if you grew up with kind of like the Banjo-Kazooie games, you know, the action platformer 3D collectathon type games, Last Tinker is probably going to feel right at home. The story is a little bit kiddish. It's effectively based on the evils of racism, of all things, but I mean, ultimately, if you can get past the story and whatnot, it's a very good game to get into if, you know, 3D platformers were your childhood. Or actually, it's really good if you have a younger kid. So if you want to play like you know, a game with your kid and you're kind of worried about general topic or violence or whatever, Last Tinker is probably a pretty good choice. Okay, next up is Sword of the Stars the Pit. It's another roguelike. It's actually much more traditional roguelike-y, you know, turn-based combat, lots of loot, progressive dungeons, so on and so forth. It's $2.60, and it's got a lot of like extra DLC that you can get as well, but it's mostly unlockable characters. That said, I would recommend this game if you liked, I guess, Dungeons of Dredmor. If you liked original roguelike games and you play roguelike games that aren't really roguelike-y, you know, a little bit more departed from the original formula, and you want to get back to the roots of the series, then Sword of the Stars the Pit is probably worth picking up. It's not as pretty as most other roguelikes, I find, but it's good enough where it counts, and it's fun to play. Okay, next is Gunhound EX. It's a platformer shoot 'em up, sort of. I don't know. You play as a giant mech. You shoot other mechs. You shoot ships, planes, whatnot. You dodge a lot of bullets as a result of it. If you like that sort of thing, if that sort of thing sounds interesting, I'd say take a look at it. If you've never heard of that sort of thing, you're not really very interested, skip it. But with the price tag of $3, I figured I'd mention it. It's kind of an interesting thing. It looks like an arcade game, but it seems to have fairly deep combat, and it's actually, I think, the only true Japanese game I'm listing here. Maybe with the exception of the next game, which is Crimson Clover for $2.50. I think both Gunhound EX and Crimson Clover are Japanese. Could be wrong about that one. Anyway, so Gunhound, pretty good. Take a look at it if you like platformer shmup type things. Anyway, Crimson Clover, like I said, $2.50. If you like shmups, bullet hells, I still can't tell the difference between the two of them. Somebody told me, and I've promptly forgotten, which I feel kind of bad about. Still, Crimson Clover is a pretty good shmup to get into, and I would recommend it. It's going to be a little bit hard, a little bit too many bullets for most people, but if you saw my review on Steridin and thought it was interesting, Crimson Clover is probably a good title to add to your list. Okay, next is Out There Somewhere. It's a Metroidvania, and mainly the reason why I bring it up is, I mean, it's actually the best deal of the day. At 20 cents, it's a fairly good story-based Metroidvania platformer, and it's got a very nice aesthetic. It's a bit simple, but again, with the price tag of 20 cents, you pretty much cannot go wrong with this one. Let's see, this is actually followed by Polarity, which is a Portal-like, also for 20 cents. It's like 96% off. It's a ridiculous deal. But it plays kind of similarly to Portal. I think you do a lot more like magnetism type puzzles. It's not exactly the prettiest game ever, and it's not exactly the deepest game ever, but again, with the price tag, it's pretty good. It's also got a local co-op campaign, which is neat. Does make me kind of grumpy that there's no online multiplayer version, just because that's what I play. But that said, you know, 20 cents is a pretty damn good deal. Okay, next up is Flyin'. At $3, I highly recommend this game. It is one of my favorite games that I ever did a Let's Play series on. It is gorgeous, it has wonderful music, the game mechanics are pretty much perfect. It does get a little bit ragey. It's a platformer, but you play as like these little flying bug things, so there's much more flying, platforming, puzzle solving as a result, instead of, you know, just kind of running to the end, jumping around enemies. In fact, are there even enemies in Flying? I don't think so. I think it's mostly just environmental obstacles up until the very, very last level / boss. I guess there's the boss. So that, yeah, no. There really aren't enemies. It's just all puzzle bosses, which is neat. I truly recommend this game. You get a lot of money out of it, and if you like platformers, you're going to love Flying. Okay, next up is SangFroid, which is a third-person action tower defense game. You put up traps and defend effectively your home from werewolves. It's actually a really well done game. It's nice and atmospheric, the art style is great, and just overall the gameplay is really deep. It's fun, and with the price tag of $3, if you like tower defense type games, if you like action tower defenses, unfortunately it's not multiplayer, but it's still very much worth picking up. So I guess if you like Dungeon Defenders, but I was going to say Orcs Must Die, SangFroid is probably worth looking into at the very least. Okay, next up is Shatter, which is effectively just block break, or shoot, whatever the Pong, I guess sort of Pong. It's one of those where you've got a paddle and you hit a ball into progressive blocks that, you know, break, and you have to destroy them all to progress through the levels. It's actually really, really pretty, and it's got really good music. It's not really the most like complicated of games, but I truly recommend it as well. It's kind of one of those weird indie games that I picked up somewhere along the way and just generally enjoyed playing, to say the least. So I recommend it. If you liked that sort of thing, then I would say pick it up. If not, eh. Okay. Let's see. What's next? Next is Dungeons of Dredmor. $3.50. If you like roguelikes, and you want to get into traditional roguelikes, if you played Sword of the Stars the Pit and you want to try something else similar, then Dungeons of Dredmor is absolutely worth picking up. It's an incredibly deep turn-based roguelike. Very good art style, very, very simple gameplay ultimately. I mean, you move left and right, but you do have like a whole host of abilities, a fairly in-depth crafting recipe system, and like almost infinite customization on your characters. So, if you want to get into a very good roguelike, Dungeons of Dredmor is the way to go. I keep wanting to do a series on it, but it also does not seem to want to be recorded ever. It crashes all of my streaming programs and crashes my recording program. So if you're a Let's Player looking into this, be warned, but truly I would recommend playing it anyway. Okay, next up is the PixelJunk Monsters Ultimate and PixelJunk Shooter Bundle. PixelJunk Monsters is a tower defense. PixelJunk Shooter is kind of like a puzzle, Metroidvania. You play as a ship, you're flying around trying to rescue people and solve puzzles and stuff like that. I haven't played much of either, but they're very pretty games. And with effectively a combined price of $3, I truly would recommend it. It's a very fun set. They're very fun sets of games, very pretty, and very, very high quality. Okay, next up is Card City Nights. Quite possibly one of my favorite games to have ever done a series on. It's hilarious. The writing is campy as hell, and just overall, it's a very deep game. It's a collectible card game. Unfortunately, it does not have online multiplayer, but the campaign mode is very fun. There are a bunch of different tactics you can use to beat your opponents, and all of them are fascinating. It's one of the only games where decking somebody is like one of the primary strategies for winning. And I really appreciate the game. And again, with a price tag of $2, if you like collectible card games, if you like puzzle games, Card City Nights is going to be really fun, and I highly recommend it. Okay, next up is Intrusion 2. It's a platformer, I guess kind of like Gunhound EX. Lots of projectiles on screen, lots of enemies to kill, pretty high quality, but Intrusion 2 is, I think it's a Flash game that was like converted to be a Steam game. I'm not entirely sure, but the animation, the pixel animation, the pixel art just in general, all are really high quality for a solo project. So I guess if you liked Mega Man growing up, you're probably going to like Intrusion 2. It's a little bit wiggly, it's a little bit weird. Actually, it also plays like the Metal Slug games. But yeah, if you liked those things, then you're probably going to like Intrusion 2, and with the price tag of $3, you're going to get your money's worth out of it. Okay, second to last is Vertical Drop Heroes. With a price tag of $2, it's a bit simpler of a roguelike, and ultimately, like, might be passable. I personally enjoyed it. It's very fun co-op. It's much more casual. You're effectively just leveling up over and over and over again, and powering your characters up. So every time they die, you know, you start back from town, you lose a little bit of stuff, but you're more powerful the second time around, and you can get through the game faster. But it's got local co-op, and it's got local area network multiplayer. It does not have online multiplayer, I think. I have to figure it out, but I know you can play online with like Hamachi and stuff, which would be kind of fun. So it's not the deepest roguelike ever, but if you want like a really casual, easy roguelike to get into, Vertical Drop Heroes is probably worth picking up. Okay, and lastly is Project Temporality. At $3, you're effectively playing as like a dude in a spacesuit that can clone himself and go back in time as well. So effectively what you do is you make branching timelines to solve puzzles, usually standing on switches or interacting with objects. But, you know, the fun is in the puzzle platforming. It's mostly just the puzzling of it all, you know, getting the right process down. And honestly, the game's kind of interesting. It's got that, I guess it's got that Dead Space vibe where, like, something bad happens and, like, everything's kind of got this, like, really, well, I guess in this one, it's got kind of a, like, nice veneer, very pretty. And then you find, like, an audio log and you're like, oh boy. Oh, that's not right. And I actually really enjoy that about the game. And with the price tag of $3, it's absolutely worth picking up as well, if you like that sort of thing. Especially if you liked Portal, or really any kind of like major Valve title, really. Okay, and with that, those are the hidden deals I could find. I'm sure there are a hell of a lot more. There's stuff like, you know, Enemy Mind, which is like, I think it's the same studio that made Steriden, but one of their earlier games, that's like 90% off for $1. That's actually a damn good shmup. See, there are so many games that I couldn't find along the way, because there's like tens of thousands of games on Steam. I don't even know. Wow. Sine Mora is pretty. Huh. I'll have to look into these things. Yeah, I've just got like more games. I've got a massive list, but those are the ones that I could find immediately, and those are the ones that I've experience with that I can talk about. I'm sure there are better hidden deals. There are sites out there that you can actually search all of the Steam library by sale price, and you know how much of a discount it is. I would recommend taking a look into that sort of thing as well. Just because, you know, there's probably a hell of a lot of things that I missed along the way, but those are the things that I recommend. So, just as a reminder, if there's a game you've been looking for on Steam, and you haven't seen it as a daily deal yet, now's the time to go pick it up, because by noon tomorrow, I guess 1 o'clock tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time, at least for me, sale's going to be over, and, well, we'll be back to, you know, regular programming. So, get whatever you want while you can. There's still some pretty good deals out there. Freaking looking at you, Grand Theft Auto. I don't think they even have the shark buck thing attached anymore. Oh, nope, they still do. Okay, they just don't say it's 25% off anymore. I guess good on them for at least rescinding that part. Ugh. But anyway, so, if you liked this video in any way, shape, or form, leave me a like. It helps more than you know, and it does let me know that you guys want to see more of these. Because I'm going to be doing more of these. I'm probably going to do mostly like Humble Bundle reviews whenever they come along, just in case you guys don't know about them, don't hear about them, whatever. As well as, you know, the occasional like Steam deal thing and other stuff that I found along the way. But with that, if there's anything I missed, please leave a comment below outlining, you know, whatever hidden indie gem, indie games, or just like other great game deals. Because I'm sure I've missed so many games along the way here. But yeah, leave a comment below with those. And if you want to see more of this sort of thing, or just me in general, please hit subscribe, because I'm going to be doing quite a lot of these things. So, with that, I guess I will see you guys on the next deal video of some kind. And thanks for sticking with me throughout this entire week of the Steam Summer Sale 2015. I guess I'll be back for Christmas. So I guess I'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching.